Good to see some familiar names and faces. As everybody is joining and we're getting settled, take a look on your screen for just a little prompt here of what to add in the chat. So tell us in the chat your name, your company name, and give us just one word to describe the state of the mental health in your organization. So it could be fragile, it could be resilient, declining, improving. Think about one word about the current state of mental health in your organization. And we'll give everybody just a minute to come in and get settled. These are some great words coming in. Steady, that's great, Lisa. Hamza, I agree with peaceful, that's a good one for us. Hopeful, good one. Tenuous, yep. These are really thoughtful words. Thank you all for sharing these. Transparent, oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's a good one. Improving, pushing through. Oh, these are great, everybody. Okay, well, thank you all, first of all, so much for joining today. My name is Rachel, and I'm with the Small Giants community, and we're feeling just really grateful to be having this conversation with you all today, and grateful for you all to be joining such an important conversation. So thank you. We don't have all the answers, as I'm sure you're aware. We're also not mental health professionals, so just putting that out there. But we do believe in the power of community and supporting each other. So we have all different types of companies, all different types of leaders in different roles joining us today. We also have a few people joining from a couple of the nation's most psychologically safe workplaces. So we have Tasty Catering and Ace Metal, which is awesome. They'll hopefully be a great resource. So I hope they'll jump in with some practices and suggestions, as well as everyone else. So if you have any systems or ideas to share to help with some of the challenges we dig into today, we would love to hear it. So if you want to just raise your hand, we can call on you to chime in, or if you want to do it via the chat, we can do it that way too. Let's see, so I wanted to also talk about just the format for today, because it's a big topic, it's an emotional one, so we wanted to give just a framework for the conversation. So the first thing we did is when everyone registered, they submitted challenges or questions. We went through those and they fell mainly within 4 different categories. So those will be the first 4 challenges that we tackle today, probably the only 4, but we'll also talk about that in a second too. So how I thought we could go through our conversation today, let me share this. So with the 4 different challenges, for each one, I'm going to throw it to one of our attendees to share about that challenge for just about a minute, give us a little bit more background, set the framework for the challenge. I might ask a couple follow-up questions, ask for any additions to that challenge, but then at that point, we'll open it up to everybody else. So if you have something that has worked, any advice you might have, or resources that you found, please jump in and share. Once we spend a little bit of time on that challenge and at least given everyone some resources and a path forward, we'll move on to the next one. We're saying about 10 minutes per challenge. Some might be a little bit less, some might be a little bit more. And if there are any that come in via the chat afterwards that we don't have time to get to, we'll follow up with that person afterward and make sure that we connect them to some resources. Okay? Someone's in the car, which we appreciate. Just make sure you're being safe if you're driving while joining us. Okay, so speaking of those 4 challenges then, here are the categories that they all mostly fell within. So the first one is, how do we talk about mental health in a professional setting? How do we recognize a mental health crisis or just mental strain in employees or colleagues or maybe even our bosses? How do we be supportive for our employees while still getting stuff done in the business? And 4, what tools and resources can we use to help employees and even ourselves? So as you look at those 4, as you hear those 4, if there are any that you feel like don't fall within those, feel free to chat them to us and we'll try and get to it at the end, or we'll connect you to some resources afterwards. Okay, so everybody good on the format and categories? Good so far? Okay, cool. Thank you, Travis. Thanks, Hamza. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is that first one that we saw there, which is this idea of how do we talk about mental health in the workplace? And for that one, oh, I see Emmy here. Emmy, I'm going to go to you. Emmy's from Image One. Emmy, take about a minute. Tell us a little bit more about this challenge. Help us frame it, and then we'll go from there.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I don't know if it's as much of a challenge as it could be a little bit of a discussion here, but we pride ourselves on really having a caring culture. In fact, one of our purpose is to show genuine care to everyone, every day, every time. It's a mission for all of us. And through COVID, we did a really good job of really tapping into how people were feeling through surveys and couple meetings a week that we would have, one-on-ones, all the things I know you're all doing. But my issue is really, how do you care about their mental health without getting too intrusive, without getting too personal? And it's that fine line of being connected, but not crossing it. And one challenge, for example, was when the kids started getting homeschooled, we set up a parent group, and it really never took off. And I was wondering what it was that didn't allow the parents in our group to maybe open up and share some of their challenges. So the issue is, how do you not cross the line but care about their mental health? So perhaps that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Let me ask a question about the parent group too. So will you tell us a little bit more about what that consisted of?
Yes, we kind of surveyed, first we surveyed all the parents that had school-aged children, and we asked them several questions. We asked them what they might need, what the company could give them in terms of technology, monitors, whatever, flex time. We really did our best. And then we thought we'd start this support group where people would get online or Zoom and share some of the things they're going through, especially for our parents. And it just never really took off. People just didn't really want to perhaps share, or they're just so overwhelmed they don't have time to share. But it was one little tidbit of, I thought, well, people aren't opening up about this. And so I didn't know if we were getting too personal or just needed to pull back.
Yeah, okay, that helps. So what I'm hearing here is how to toe that line between not being too intrusive, but truly showing that you care. And then a secondary part of trying to do things to encourage people to share personally, to be vulnerable, maybe getting met with a couple of crickets, right? And so how to encourage people to actually start a conversation about mental health and be vulnerable and open there. So given that, does anyone have any ideas to kick us off that might help in how to have that conversation about mental health and how to encourage employees to be vulnerable and talk about what they're going through?
Fatima from Unitech Construction Management. So something that we've done as a company as a whole, we attempted to also do the same thing as kind of doing a Teams call where we had everybody kind of speak up about some of the issues that they're facing, but we felt like it was really hard for people to come out with these ideas and really share it with everyone. So instead, what we decided to do is company-wide, we provided the opportunity for everybody to have a Teams call and called it a Friday drinking night. So we, got everybody, whether you actually drink wine, beer, tea, whatever it might be, and we all, just cheers together and started talking about the positive, outcomes of what's happening. And then from there, we started getting some people to feel comfortable with other people. In that, we were able to address certain individuals that they can come and talk to. Therefore, we've provided that message in a fun setting. And then have the individuals come personally, because of course they didn't want to share too much, but came personally about some of the issues. And we were then able to help establish what we could do on our end and what other resources we can get for them. But just having a fun time together, it really started building that trust. And it built trust in other employees that, you don't see on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in head office or on another site. That's how we kind of established ours, is by continuing to have, as we like to call it, the drinking Fridays. And, we went out of our way for the drinking Fridays, and we sent out those coffee, wine, tea, beer, yada, yada, yada. And by doing something so small like that, we opened up the opportunity for those to speak to us. And we've had great turnout of people just calling in and just going, hey, can I just talk for a moment? And we go on, and yes, it may be an hour and a little bit, but they come back and they go, we are excited and so thankful to be with a company that just listens. So definitely that was our strategy on how we did it. And we did utilize a survey at the beginning, but everybody was very nervous. So it was nervous at first, but that worked for us. So we took that approach.
That's great. I love the casual approach. And something we've heard too is making sure that while we also support parents, how do we make sure and support employees who may be just alone in an apartment or a home and they're not seeing human beings anymore? This sounds like a great way to do that.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? And feel free, you can wave your hand if you're on video or chat us. We'll call on you that way. But I'll take a second to look for some hands.
Hey, Rachel, it's Erica.
Hey, Erica.
Hi. So the first thing I wanted to mention to Emmy is I think even though maybe you think that the parent group was kind of met with not a lot of positivity, I would just encourage you to not give up right away, because I actually have been doing a lot of initiatives on this whole topic of self-care and kind of trying to make sure you think about yourself during this time. And kind of the same as you, I was feeling like it wasn't being received as well as I might have hoped. And we did a couple of surveys and really found that, a lot of people responded that they, wished that they had participated in, A, B, or C, but couldn't that time, but that overall, they really appreciated the effort that was being put forth to put those things together and organize those things. So I would just, I just wanted to mention that, keep trying different things. Like, I think it was Fatima, was trying to kind of come up with different strategies to just reach different groups of people. Like for my company, we do some lunch things, we do some happy hour time things to try to reach people, because not everybody's going to have the same preference of what they want to do. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Erica. And let's see, we saw hands from Brian, and then we'll go to Jason.
All right, hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm testing a new mic setup, so we'll see.
It sounds great, very professional.
Good, yes, it's a podcasting microphone, so hopefully it sounds all right. Anyway, that's not the point. So yeah, we tried a lot of these things. I think trying a lot of different things, seeing what really works. This is an unusual time for everybody, and so people may have really good intentions, but our attention is pulled in a lot of different directions. Some of the things that we've done that have worked out pretty okay, especially because so I'm with Goulet Pens. We sell fountain pens, e-commerce company. And so we had to actually shut down our whole shipping facility for 7 weeks when COVID first hit. So it was like people who were used to coming in and just packing up orders in our warehouse all day, they had to go home and they couldn't come into the office for a long time. So we really got thrown deep into how do we keep people plugged in and engaged and stuff like that right away. And we're back to more normal operation now somewhat, but we had some things that carried through that have really worked. So we utilize Slack pretty heavily for internal communication. So we set up some specific Slack channels, one of which when everybody was at home and we weren't operating as heavily, we chose to pay our team in full anyway. So we had a game channel, and we would have games at 1 o'clock. We found some games that were through Slack, like trivia games and things like that. So not everybody could come every day, but there were a good number of people that came and just, made some memories and got to share some experiences that way. We have one, we called it Homeward Bound. So a bunch of people who are not used to working at home that now are sharing, funny pictures of their cat laying in the sunlight, or, just things like that were ways for people to share their situation at home with other members of our team that were just different, and trying to take advantage of, okay, we're in this weird situation, but you know, we can still kind of make the most of it. And just like prompting with a lot of questions like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And hey, we're trying to get takeout from different restaurants. What's everybody been, finding that actually like delivers and doesn't feel like you're going to get sick when you eat there, and these types of things. So things like that. Slack, we've been utilized pretty heavily, as well as some of what's already been mentioned here.
That's a great one. And a common theme here is, it sounds like just the personal connections first, and then the vulnerability will follow. And Arlene sent a chat. She said, just a quick comment, stigma with mental health, being vulnerable is vital. So both of these sound like a great way to encourage some of that vulnerability. Let's go to Jason and then to Brittany.
Sure, thanks. So yeah, I'd echo what a lot of people are mentioning in terms of trying different things and experimenting, because it does seem to, different people have different needs. For us as an organization, we tried to take kind of like the air war, ground war type tactics, and using like our company platforms and communications to the company in a whole to raise awareness. We shut the company down for a day for a mental health day, trying to like shine a light on the need to disconnect and unplug. And then having our managers and team leaders get closer to more of the personal and vulnerable places with people. We've encouraged people with some standing meetings to like get outside and go for a walk instead of having the meeting that you might have had at that point, and share pictures of, what you found or just something nice about the walk you had. And, really relying on managers to have that personal connection with people, to have the more intimate dialogue around what's going on with the person, and then being proactive, encouraging them to do things that will help stay ahead and keep them in a good mental place, given how bizarre of a time we're in.
That's a great one. I love the visual aspect too of what everyone is sharing here, of sharing either your workspace or what your home life, or I love the go on a walk instead of a meeting and share some pictures. Those are good. Thanks, Jason. All right, Brittany.
I actually wanted to share a lot of the same themes that Jason discussed, but for me, modeling has been really critical, like modeling as a leader the behaviors that I want to see in my folks. So acknowledging that like this is weird and challenging for me. You got to walk that fine line between like presenting a strong, confident leadership front that's going to make people feel safe, secure, and confident, but also opening up and being a little bit vulnerable about, life isn't perfect. We're all struggling. I think that's really important. And then modeling like the behaviors that that I, need to have for my own mental health and well-being, and not skimping out on those can be a really powerful motivator. So one really impactful way for me has been when I take all of my one-on-one calls with folks in my organization, if at all possible, like if it's not pouring sleet with driving winds, I get out and go for a walk, and I'll Slack the person beforehand and say, hey, I'm going out for a walk on our call. I'm going to join audio only. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case you want to do the same thing. And that for me has been a really powerful way to build in some activity to my day, because that's another place where I've really personally been struggling, modeling that I am making proactive changes in my behavior, and also encourage other people to open up about, where they've been experiencing challenges and talk about those, and B, also model that it's a proactive thing, and you need to make accommodations. You can't just expect that that this is going to feel normal and just come easily. So that's been a really key thing that myself and my office leaders have been talking about.
Those are great. Thank you for that. And just the modeling in general is a great one to keep in mind. Meg, would you be okay with me throwing it to you to talk about? And I'm calling out Meg from Tier 1 because I know about a program that they have that I'm wondering if she would share with us a little bit.
Sure. So we've been working with mental health and having that conversation around it for well over 5 years now. So these current situations with COVID where, you know, I guess if you look at it, it's really opened up everyone to be able to talk about mental health because we can all relate to it. But we had started a journey about 5 years ago, really just trying to normalize conversations around mental health. And some of that was just our kind of brainstorming ways to make a greater impact on our employees, on our community, and recognizing that was just an area that wasn't talked about a lot. And yet, if you start to ask each other about it, almost everyone has either experienced with a family member or friend, or knows someone, colleague, etc., who has struggled with mental health. So we started a journey 5 years ago, and actually this past May, we kind of took it to a version 2.0 and made it all virtual, of course. But really, it was first really about just educating everyone. There's so much great information out there about just, 1 in 5 experience mental health issue and the importance of getting treatment. And the average length of time is 11 years to get treatment. You know, you think about that with other types of diseases that just wouldn't, that wouldn't happen. So our first starting point was just, kind of around this education and then the normalizing of it. And I think this part of creating this safe and trusting environment has helped us a lot in being able to address the challenges that everyone's experiencing right now with COVID. But it was normalizing it from the leaders. And so leaders sharing their stories of why is this important to talk about made such a difference. Because when your folks see that vulnerability opened up and just, sharing different aspects, whether supporting a family member or personal struggles or friend, etc. So kind of just normalize it. And that's part of the journey in there. And then I would say the next piece, like once you're able to kind of create that environment and have those conversations, is the support around it. So we really, there's so many different ways. I think you all have mentioned different ways to help support around that. And then just the kind of the continuance of that. So I'm happy, Rachel, I know you've seen different versions. You've seen our first version and an overview of our second, and just the interactions and the places of connection throughout that. But both of them were designed as 4-week journeys. We really did it, piloted on ourselves as an organization and created it to take to other organizations to just start the conversation and reduce the stigma around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was really impressed with what the team at Tier 1 did. And Meg shared a document that we can share with everybody afterwards that outlines the 4 steps that they go through in those 4 weeks. And then Meg, there was also a question in the chat about links to resources, credible resources to share with your team, which I think you've sent us in the past, but I'm sorry, the chat is scrolling here, so I can't see who sent that, but we'll see, and then we'll send out some links to those resources that you can share with your team there on that one too. Okay, so for this one, I know, Emmy, you posed the challenge, but a lot of people who submitted questions, they were around the same idea. So does that feel like a couple ideas, a path forward on this one, on starting that conversation? Paul, did you want to chime in? I see you just unmuted there.
Yes. That was great. I really enjoyed the discussion, and that vulnerability is that underlying theme. It's kind of like, I know I don't want to monopolize this, but it's like, when are you a therapist and when are you a leader? And it's a balance.
It is.
Isn't it the same thing, Emmy? I think it's one and the same. And great comments from everybody. I think it's about starting the conversation and giving people permission. Other than Meg, who just spoke, a lot of us would probably say we haven't addressed this at all, right? And all of a sudden we're in this pandemic, and Image One is a company well known for its culture, and here this isn't easy for you guys either. So I think the leadership vulnerability is really important. And, I'll admit I suffer from anxiety, and I have my, whole life at different times. It might go years before, and during the beginning of COVID, it really hit me hard. And so I told Hamza, hey, I want you to know that what I'm going through. And I think that was kind of the first step to opening up the dialogue and then making sure people felt like they had permission to talk about this. I think what's important too is that these efforts and great ideas of what you guys are talking about right now don't end when COVID ends. Right. I think it's just a great lesson learned for all of us that this becomes part of the way we do business, and we give people permission to talk about mental health at all times.
Yeah, great points. And I love that fine line of a leader and therapist, and sometimes those are the same. All right, thank you, everybody. So let's jump to the next one. Also, just a quick note, there's a lot of great links and comments going on in the chat, and we can send those to you guys afterwards too. So the next one here is about how to recognize a mental health crisis or just mental health strain and fatigue in employees or colleagues, and sometimes even ourselves. So Erin, I'm going to jump to you for this one to tell us a little bit more and frame our challenge here.
Well, I think you summed it up, actually. We're all going through this shared experience, and we're operating at a different level consistently than we have before, for better or worse. And so, yeah, how do you find, as a leader, the self-awareness to take care of your own needs and then branch out beyond that, if you're lucky enough to be aware of your own needs, struggles, challenges, to identify those tendencies in your team?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. Anyone have any tips there, either for in ourselves, if we're self-aware enough, like Erin mentioned, or in our team members? What are some signs that someone might be dealing with some mental health issues or just some fatigue?
For us, definitely we noticed attitude, character, someone coming in with a little bit more of a negative down character, and just really not being themselves, and taking that opportunity to, go up to them and just be like, hey, is everything going okay? Take a seat, give them that extra 15-20 minute break. We've had a couple of people in the office come down with just being completely quiet and just noticing patterns, and picking up on those patterns and not just brushing it to the side and being like, oh, their kid kept them up last night or something of that sort. Really just paying attention and being that extra hand of saying, hey, I'm here if you need to talk, right? Take that extra 10 minutes, or even going above and beyond, in which we do is we go, you know what? Lunch is on us today. Like, why not take a lunch on us? Just really understanding and looking for those behaviors.
Yeah, good. Paying close attention. And that's good that, on this call, we're all these purpose-driven leaders, these small giants who have relationships with our employees where we can pick up if something seems amiss or if they seem a little bit different than normal.
Rachel, this is Jacob from Oris. Another thing that we noticed is with the new technology, we had a team member who all of a sudden was never on camera when he was before. And so his manager said something to me like, do you know why he stopped being on camera? And I said, no, but that's actually a warning flag for me. And so I reached out to him, and there was some things that were going on in his personal life. So I think, being aware, it sounds creepy, but actually being aware when things in the background have changed, and if suddenly they're not on video and they always were before, has been another kind of warning for us.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one to look out for. And technology helps us in identifying that, but sometimes it can hurt too.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, Keith, I'll go to you next.
Okay, so one of the things that we find ourselves doing is, as leaders, being more present. And I think sometimes when we might walk to the shop more often, we might check in with more people. This seems like a natural thing. We had an incident where with one guy that you can just see he was stressed, and you can just feel it with his energy, and his stress is, he lives in a rural area, he doesn't have Wi-Fi, his kid's going crying every night because she's going to fail third grade. I mean, this is, you can feel he's not going to weld very well that day when this is what's on his mind. So that's our role there, is try to help, I don't know, we find ways, and we're able to get him some Wi-Fi and figure out how to do that for him. But those just relax into that stress at home. I think you bring it right with you. So we as leaders are trying to be more on the floor, more interaction, and with the masks and the distance, it's almost like you're forced to do less. And we just want to try to turn that around and be more present. And I think we can see some of the things that all you guys are talking about, which is awesome. Is just, you can read the people that you know and you care about, and you can tell when they're off and when they're on. And I think as we become more available to them, they're going to trust us more, and we can solve, I'll say, little things like how to get Wi-Fi. Give me that one all day. I'll jump on that one. That's way more fun than trying to, handle some of the other issues that we got at home. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that was great. We recently had a conversation in a Small Giants Leadership Academy call talking about, Paul shared this concept of what's important to them, meaning an employee, is important to me. So we might not realize, oh, someone doesn't have Wi-Fi, or, someone's daughter is worried about failing 3rd grade. But really having the conversations and figuring out what's important to each individual employee and helping them with that. What else? I'll look for some hands here. Also, it looks like there was a great comment from Brian in the chat. Got a couple +1s, Brian. Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in here about how to recognize? We'll go.
Sorry.
Arlene. Who is that?
I think Arlene. Yeah, sorry, my Zoom's kind of acting up. I don't know.
problem.
My hand waved on the screen, and then I tried to actually move my hand. So I don't know, but I'm here. So just a real quick comment. I was going to say, there's, with the use of technology, which I know some of you have mentioned has been really great. I've seen through like the Teams channels or like Zoom chats and things like that, a lot of those have been created with groups of individuals, and there'll be people who will maybe ask for help or assistance and things like that. And I'd say, like, really pay attention to some of those responses. Like if someone's asking for whatever kind of help it might be, if it's for them, it's for their team, or operationally, whatever it is, people will respond too. But I think it's really important, even if it looks like that need is being met through like, oh, you can do this, or you can do that, and it seems like they're getting help, to really reach out to that individual who really initiated it, because sometimes there's just a lot more going on there than just the question that's being asked through these channels. And I can think of 3 instances right now where we've done that and followed up, and there's just been much more kind of going on behind the scenes. So with all the use of technology and chats and so forth like we have, I just think it's great to kind of be extra cognizant of some of those cues as we're meeting with our teams.
Yeah, that's a great reminder that this stuff is so much deeper than surface level. So to make sure to follow up. And let's see, I see your name is listed as Community Fire. I think your name is Sean. Is that right?
That's correct.
All
yes.
right, go ahead, Sean.
I think you have to look at every situation. And so are you dealing with mental health with 1 or 2 people in an organization, or are you dealing with multiple, or 5, 10? And at that point, I think when you're starting to look at, there's lots of people, you need to go back to your core values. You need to start looking at what's happening and what's breaking down in the process, because something there, if you're having that many people, it's likely work driven, and you need to get to the cause of it. And so it's back to the core values in your leadership team. And if it's 1 or 2 individuals, that's really when it starts to be revolving around your leadership team and making sure that the people that are on that leadership team are compassionate, empathetic people that are asking a lot of questions to find out what's going on with their team. And I think it was Keith who said it, is getting to the floor and asking those questions. That's what leaders are doing. They're stepping out of potentially the norm, or their day-to-day is being with their team and asking the questions and boosting that morale.
Oops. Sorry, yeah, absolutely. It starts at the top is something that we say a lot of times. Anybody else here? A lot of great stuff going on in the chat too. Yeah, and go ahead, Paul. I saw you unmute there.
Yeah, there's great comments, particularly in the chat. I like what Janet was saying. We can kind of simplify this, in my opinion, that it's not necessarily about mental health disease or something that's extreme. Could be, and I think seeing the signs of someone that's really suffering, we should step up and offer them resources. But it comes back to the relationships we have with our team and kind of being present when we're in those conversations. If we think about the one-to-ones and we're focused on the work and what we're doing, are we just stopping to say, how you doing? How you feeling? And just listening and not pay, having our phone off, not checking email, just kind of listening. And if we are consistent with that, I think those issues are going to be uncovered.
Yeah, that's a great summary there.
That's Cornell from Tasty. I want to add something. I think
yeah,
it's
go ahead,
important.
Cornell.
It's the relationships you build. It's giving people platforms because, there's a lot of comments that there's some people that might want to talk to, some will be shy and things like that. So I think it's important to give people the platform, build those relationships that they know they can come to you when they're struggling. And, I learned this through Tom Walter years ago is, going in and checking with everybody every single day. That's the most important thing with the leaders because, taking those disruptors out because, a lot of our folks work in the building still. So, if somebody's scared of something or, their family struggling at home, they're not going to be productive. And, that's the critical part is those relationships and being open and honest and making sure that the employees feel safe coming to talk to you, that, you give them that platform. So.
Yeah, thank you for that, Cornell. That's a great point. Okay, so for this one, I see there's a lot of great stuff in the chat that we'll send out too. But for now, let's move on to our third challenge area. And this one I'm going to pose on behalf of an audience member. So this is around the idea of how to be supportive while still getting stuff done. So this person shared that they're seeing a dramatic uptick in employees calling out of work. The further we get into this pandemic, I know that we're tired, scared, exhausted, and struggling. But how can we support employees during this difficult time and engage them enough to get them to keep showing up both literally and figuratively? So that idea of we want to be supportive, but we still have businesses that we want to make sure can thrive during this. So any initial thoughts that people can share? And feel free to physically raise your hand, or there's a raise your hand tool within Zoom too. Feel free to use that as well. Any thoughts? How can we be supportive of our employees, but also make sure that we're still being productive? Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Rachel. Good to be with everyone. Thanks for all your thoughtful comments to this point. And I think it's a little bit like dancing, right? You got to lead with one foot and then follow with the other. So to me, you always have to lead with the personal. And if you're leading with that, then you can talk to them about the demands of the job and the work product and things that need to get done. But if they sense that you're leading with that first, you're going to lose them. And if you do nothing to address the personal, then you're getting nothing back too. So as long as you're leading with the personal, you can follow with the other parts.
Awesome. That's a great approach. Simple and succinct. Thank you. Brittany, I saw your hands.
Yeah, going back to what somebody else said earlier, noticing is really important, I think, and catching it early and often. So that's both having the tools to be monitoring whatever key productivity behaviors are important to your organization. For us, we're a professional services firm. It's the billable hour. So we're being really intentional about making sure that people are meeting their billable hours metrics. And, if they look like they're not on track to meet them, because we track on a quarterly basis, having conversations earlier rather than later. Maybe even if people are just, a couple hours behind, whereas previously it might have been easy to wave that off and then be like, oh, they'll catch up. Now we're really checking in to make sure that, okay, do people, first of all, understand or have any questions about the requirements and the KPIs, and if they don't, working with them to craft a plan for meeting their KPIs. And I think that shows that we're engaged, but we're also wanting to help them, figure out how to do it, and not just saying, you worker, go do the work, and being able to catch it before it's too late.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a good balance. And I mean, the theme here is coming out is just these personal conversations. Okay, let's go to Jason next.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying around the personal conversations. Organizationally, we try and keep things really transparent in terms of organizational health and financial health and how we're doing, and having those discussions, especially during this period where our business was pretty heavily impacted. I think really puts it in people's heads that while this is a difficult time, we also need to make sure that we're all rallying together for the health of the business. So I feel that, those sort of like broader communications to people within an organization can help keep that in the back of your head that yes, we are trying to take care of ourselves and we're leading with a lot of humanistic behaviors and a lot of empathy, but we do need to make sure that the business stays healthy for all of us too. And that transparency, I feel like, helps send that message.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to Wei Ting next.
Thanks. I think I would agree with my firm is a professional services firm too. And so the billable hours thing is a very real number for us. And I think one of the things that, I'm sorry, I think it was, I can't remember who just spoke. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Was saying is about transparency. I mean, we share our numbers with our team. They know when we're projecting outcomes that are not looking very good because our billable hours might be low. And so I think for them to see that, it's not a surprise to them if we're asking a little bit more of them, to put in some more hours, to put in some proposals or things like that. The other thing I would add that is also the case is that we try to, every year as part of the performance evaluation cycles, we have learning goals that we try to establish with team members. And the learning goals kind of are a meld of what the firm needs of them, but also what their interests and desires are for growth. And we've actually doubled down on helping them try to figure out what their learning goals are for the year, or rather the learning goals that we established earlier in the year, how we make them happen. And I think they see that we're trying to be creative about, different opportunities for them, internal projects as opposed to external projects. And I think it motivates them to actually be able to commit a little bit more too.
Oh, I love that. And that sounds like something that's not only going to be beneficial to your firm, but also to them as human beings, and seeing that you're investing in them. So those are great. Let's take one more if there's one more. Otherwise, we'll go on to our final one. Okay, I don't think I see any more hands. So, oh yeah, Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned the meetings and the transparency, and something just keeps coming up, but I just thought I'd share is that one of the things when we had our town halls and we had these very intimate 7 to 8 people town halls with our owner, myself, and our HR, and just trying to ask their stress levels, where they're at. We quickly were able to then, after kind of touching them personally, we were calling it brutal reality and credible hope. And I think that really helped them say, hey, here's where we're at. Here's the sales, here's the orders, here's what we're up against. And I think they appreciated that piece of it. But it was nice to leave them with not just, hey, but, it'll be okay, and, good cheerleading stuff that kind of just pump them up, but really give them, hey, but here's what we're working on, here's what we're after, here's the credible hope that we want you to leave with, so that you feel a little bit, and, the level of the uncertainty meter that we were trying to judge them and have them rate themselves against, was to try to raise that in those moments. So it was kind of a nice way to balance that. And I think that, again, I hear the word transparency, all that's great. I just was trying to, we were trying to shape it a little bit and say, hey, we're going to tell you exactly how bad this is, but we're also going to try to give you some hope at the end that isn't just, rainbows and, unicorns, so thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Keith. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I love what's been said. I think what Kevin talked about, just starting out with the personal and checking in with everybody is important. But if we're trying to balance getting work done, this transparency idea that Jason talked about and Keith is really key. Let's be honest about how the business is doing, because all of our employees, regardless of what's going on, want the business to be doing well. I guess the one part I would add to it is that once we are transparent about how tough things are or the challenges we have, now turn it back to them and ask their advice, ask for their help, ask for their ideas, and include them in the solutions. And I think you'll just see tremendous engagement. You know, Image One is a great example of that. Came up with new products and services that they were able to roll out. Other companies, so all the ideas are out there. And so I think if we engage them in that process too, that'll not only help the business, but maybe even help some of the mental health issues that are going on out there. But great ideas.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, thank you for that, everybody. Okay, let's move on to another one, which is around just general resources to help. So for this one, I'm going to turn it to Martina to help us frame this and tell us a little bit more.
Hi, yes. So basically, I'm based in Germany. So in Northern Europe, as probably in much of America, the light is sort of failing. And then we have COVID, obviously. The climate crisis will be next, I suppose. So on top of that, I'm running a fund, and we had a few kind of defaults in our organizations, which really means that we made a lot of losses. So we were struggling to kind of reach those numbers that we had set for ourselves. In addition to this, some of my team members are struggling with anxiety. And of course, these times have brought on exactly that. So when you ask them for solutions, that's always, I'm not sure, I don't think this is gonna work. So it's really been an uphill struggle. And all of this is framed by an organization and the leadership on top of me that unfortunately doesn't really care much about employees to the point of burnout. So that's a really, really frequent phenomenon in my organization, that people are just overworking and then end up just having to take time out because they really can't function anymore. So the whole environment is extremely bleak, so to speak. I've been trying to kind of catch some of it, obviously, work with my team by having such conversations, by really being empathetic, and then still trying to get them back on track. And it sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't really work. I have some of my team members have a lot of sick days because of that. So things aren't really that easy for all of us. So I was simply wondering what kind of resources would be out there to help people along. Having said that, I think in the chat there were already a lot of hints. In addition to this, I mean, I paid attention and I was taking a few notes of things that I should really focus on a bit more. And yeah, so I'm curious to hear what other people have used, or if there are any websites, and yeah, also perhaps how to deal with an organization that doesn't have such a great employee support program, for instance, because really our leadership doesn't care. They really just they're kind of burning through people, I'm afraid. And that's really unhealthy, and it's maybe sort of hopefully the minority, but I fear it's a majority of organizations. So yeah. So that's kind of my challenge right now.
Yeah, that's a good one, and it's a heavy one too. There's a lot of, I think, the word bleak. The world can feel a little bit bleak right now, maybe a lot bleak. So what resources and tools can we share is one side, but then the other side I think is really interesting that you brought up, Martina, is we've talked a lot about how can we support employees, but let's talk about the other way of how do we manage up with this? It can be a lot more intimidating to have a conversation like this with a supervisor or a manager or a boss or a founder. So any tips on either of those sides, on the resources and tools side, or on the how do we have this conversation up side? Yeah, go ahead, Martina.
Sorry, I just want, I'm actually just kind of clapped, it seemed, rather than actually raising my hand.
It's okay.
But, for the managing up, for instance. So I mean, at the moment, because I'm part of the leadership team as well, I'm heading a department, and I'm reporting directly to the board. So I mean, there are kind of board meetings as well. So I mean, when COVID started, I'm also I've got kids as well, so of course it was really a challenge to kind of organize everything, and I've seen this in other people as well. And since we have such a high burnout rate, I decided to kind of establish sort of a group of women, of also of fathers, for instance, who kind of have that same issue of dealing with kids at home while still getting all their work done and stuff. And I mean, the management was really oblivious to it, first of all, and then after that, sort of brushing it off as kind of a problem that didn't really exist. So I mean, we kind of established a paper, kind of laying down all the stuff that we need. We sort of just put it in front of them and told them this is what we're going to do. So this is our way of getting the work done. And in the end, they sort of accepted it. But it's not been sort of a very smooth or nice process, so to speak. It's been you kind of have to fight for it, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you are fighting for it. It's a good fight to fight. So thank you for that. Any ideas for Martina for this overall challenge, or any resources that anybody wants to share? Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
I have personal experience with this a little bit too. So within your own position, within your own department, it's all you can control is what you can control. And so for you to just set the example, to be there and show up empathetically for your team is you doing the best version of yourself. If to try and change that and let those outside influencers is really going to affect the entire people that you support. So I really think focusing on that and showing up as your best self so you can support those people is really critical. Leading up is a whole different challenge. It's really, really difficult. But the one thing that I continue to fall back to is relating the leadership team or the executives to the human experience that they're neglecting. It's about the human beings at the end of the day. And when they look at it as just numbers or just profitability or whatever they may be judging it by, I've tried to tie that back to this is affecting our team member in this way. And now that team member is being burnt out, or whatever I can do just to shine light on that example. But just disconnecting from the numbers or the profit or the workload or whatever it may be, it's all that I continue to work with. And that has allowed our leader, our owner, to then say, how do I want to show up for these people? And when they look at it from the people at perspective, it started to change the perspective of their personal perspective. And then they do see that I don't want to burn these people out. I don't want to lose these individuals. So that's been my personal experience, and it's been helpful. But it is a really hard lesson in resiliency for you as a leader. And I'm so sorry that you're experiencing that. And I've been right there with you. But the work is so worthwhile, and your team members will be there behind you to support you. And hopefully that does show the leadership team one more example of why your department's working well, is because you're focused on the people and the vulnerability.
That's beautiful, Travis. Thank you for that.
And to add to that, I definitely say, we've had some of those challenges as well. And with our executive team always looking at numbers, we were able to kind of come out and go, okay, if you overwork your staff, or if you have them at this state and this state and this state, this is the productivity level. This is where you're going to stop making money, because of the, even if you go constant turnover in this, is now talking in their terms. So now you're going to turn it around and be like, okay, here's what you know and what you understand. So I'll come back with you and show you what could happen if you don't take X, Y, Z seriously in your terms, in the number terms. So for us, once we did that and we turned it around and was like, okay, if we miss 3 here, 3 there, 4 there, 4 here, and you had this much turnover, this is how much loss in income, productivity, this and this. And it was like, oh my God. And it was like a light bulb just switched. And it was like, what can we do? What are the resources we need? Let's go, let's get it going. And that to me kind of helped, especially if you're dealing with individuals who are in a more senior level, who do look at mainly the numbers and how much, things are coming in and out. So that definitely helped me in my my position.
A great approach and great job on doing that. What else? Yeah, Mary Beth, go ahead.
I've seen it in the chat several times, but I just wanted to say the EAPs are a great resource. you know, being vulnerable, I use them myself for my own challenges, and it's a free resource. You know, I just picked up the phone and made the call. And with that in my, you know, in my history, I've really tried to share that with my company, and we have primarily younger employees who probably don't even know what EAP stands for, the fact that it's free. And so between me and our CEO, we've just really tried to promote it and say, hey, it's easy, just call this number. We'll never know. That is just totally you, but it's free, and we've used it. We love it. Gotten some great success out of it. So, you know, so we've just really tried to promote that periodically. We just bring it up.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. And also there's probably a lot of those things that we have that we just take them for granted, but it's great to bring those back up and remind people that there are resources available to them.
Yeah, and that, and our health insurance provider also, like we have Capital Blue, they have there's lots of programs that these insurance companies provide for free. So, you know, taking some time to just go in and seeing, I'm seeing webinars and wellness challenges, and even money to go, if you go get your biometrics done, that's $200 that you get. So there are lots of incentives that you can tap into through at least some insurance companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Great reminder there. Let's go to Alex next.
Hi, everyone. So I live in Mexico. My internet's a little unstable, so hopefully you can hear me right now. So I just wanted to respond to the comment that senior management is really focused on numbers and it can be hard to change their perspective. And I think when it comes to employee morale, engagement, and mental health, there's no reason why we can't put a quantitative spin on this. So for example, all of our weekly team meetings, one of the things that we ask all of our employees to do is just on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how are you feeling? And that's the only context we put is how are you feeling? And when we go through each week, you know, as much as they're willing to share, and we learn things that are just helpful from a management perspective. Like, I feel like I have way more clients than I can handle. Glad you told me. I just quit smoking and I am so anxious right now. Good to know. You know, so there's a lot of these things, and you know, you can look at, it's not like an NPS, an employee NPS score, but you can, you know, begin picking up on these details, and they're useful not just from like a business perspective, but just helping the employee and just being tuned in. And we're a fully remote organization, so we've been remote since long before COVID, and I think that there's ways that you can systematically build in quantitative metrics into your systems and processes so that you can feel in tune and connected. But it's like it's the lifelong challenge of being a remote business.
Yeah, that's a great point on being the remote business, but also that we can quantify some of these things. And I love the open-endedness of that question too. And to Alex, Janet just said, normalize talking about feelings. I love that too. Let's see, so we're coming up on the end of the hour here. First of all, thank you all. The resources that you shared, the ideas, I just feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude to know all of you and to just be part of this and this conversation. Thank you all for the conversations that you're having with your employees, with your communities. And we have a lot of notes and a lot of resources that we'll share via email with you either tonight or tomorrow morning. So look out for that. Just thank you all so much. We hope to see you at another roundtable coming up soon. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see everybody.